Hello everyone, welcome to another very exciting tutorial. Today we're going to be building the accordion panel uh, that you can use in your web pages. So let's get started. Accordion is one of those components that a lot of people use to sort of categorize the content in a small section, the content that have the same sort of information passing on. For example, FAQs are one of the sections that people use accordions for, and it kind of presents the data in a compact form in a small area. Uh, so let's get started. I'm going to Codenest Online front-end editor. What am I going to do is I'm going to, as always, create a container, and then within the container, I'm going to add like three panels. Like I'm just going to say title panel one, and then after that it comes its content, and then I'm gonna do another title, name it panel 2, and then its content, and then I'm going to create the last one with the class title. I'm gonna say panel 3, and then I will just put uh, the content to that panel as well right underneath it, right? So let's put div, and then I'm just gonna write content for panel 1, and then the same thing, content for panel 2, copying this and then paste it and say panel 3. Obviously this can be any sort of content related to that panel. So now what am I going to do? I can go to kotus.com, going to get the Kotus UI framework just because we have a font here that is kind of nice. So going to import it in my CSS, import URL, and then passing on the address to the CSS file of the library. Now going to style my container, and then maybe just give it a width of 60%, for example. This container can be any container, wherever you put your panel. Then what am I going to do? Maybe give it a margin of 60 pixel and then 20 pixel. So here is going to be my panel. Now what I want to do is style my titles. So I'm going to make them a little bit bigger. So maybe 20 pixel for font size, and then give it a padding of 10 pixel. Since we gave it a padding of 10 pixel, I'm going to do the same for my content. So instead content here, I'm just going to give it a padding of 10 pixel. Now these are aligned, very nice. What the next thing I want to do is give it the titles, the border top, 1 pixel solid and something like CCC, so that I actually can see the differences in the panel sections. So now the idea is that uh, when you click on so initially all of these are going to be hidden, and then when you click on each of these titles you want to get like that content of that panel, right? So all of these titles. So what am I going to do is I am going to set I'm going to sort of define, like, let's say display none. So all of those are gone now, and then I will add a class show to the content, which I'm going to enable using JavaScript, right? So here I'm going to set it to display block, right? All right, excuse me. So now the other thing I want to do is right now when you hover on this text, it has the sort of the cursor for the text. I'm just going to change the cursor here to pointer. So now it's kind of pointer. It can be like default as well. Sometimes you don't need to really put like uh, the cursor pointer. So it's default as you see is a normal pointer here. So now in the JavaScript, what I want to do is that I want to have a reference to all these titles, right? Going to JavaScript, I'm going to say titles, defining a variable, defining a constant here, and then say document.query selector all. Since they're multiple, it should be all. And then I would just say container, container, and then maybe title. So let's just fix this container and then title. So now I have a reference to all of those. Since there are three of them, I had to use all instead of query selector. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do for each of those, passing a function, and then inside that function as argument, I said title. Now, when I choose to click on this one, what am I gonna do is that I need to enable the show CSS. I need to add that show CSS to the content right after it, right? Because as you can see, we have title one and then its content is right the next sibling of it. So what am I gonna do is I'm gonna say title dot next element sibling dot class list dot add and then show, right? So now you can see that it actually already, since I just looped over them, it actually enabled all of them. So obviously I don't want to add it here. I just want, when I click on each panel, this shows up, right? So I'm just gonna just copy this here for now and then say title.add event listener. And then on click, I pass a function, and then within that function, I will paste my code, right? So now, whenever I click on panel 1, it's going to show its next content, panel 2. It's going to again show its content, and then panel 3, it's going to say it's going to show its content as well. So the important thing with accordions is that it will show one panel at a time. So you can have it this way, of course, if you want to expand all the panels, but most of the time accordions work the way, like when you click on panel 1, it shows content to panel 1, and when you click on another panel, it actually hides the other one, right? So what we need to make sure is that we want to have a function. I'm just calling it the function hide panels, and then this is a function, and then what am I going to do? I'm going to loop over all the contents. So I have to have a reference to all the contents here with this. And then I will loop over all the, let me just rename this as well. So contents, and then contents dot, then again for each of those contents, I'm passing content. So for each of those contents, I want to say content dot class list dot remove show, right? So now, having this function, whenever I click on each of the titles, first I want to hide whatever that is with the class show, which is basically calling this. So hide panels, and then I basically show the one that needs to be shown based on the title that is clicked, right? So now if I click on this, you'll see that it shows this one. And now when I click on this one, it actually hides the other one. This obviously go and sort of goes and removes the show class for all of them, but also one way you can do it is just, since we only gonna have one panel that has show, we can actually select that specific one and then remove the show from it, right? So for now, this looks kind of nice. Now we want to have some sort of an indicator like an array or something over here that we can use to sort of hide or show the panels, right? So the way to do it, I'm going to use the CSS. One way I'm going to do it is basically, if I'm going to use material icons for this purpose. So I'm going to material icons, material design icon set, and I'm going to search for arrow. So if you can see here, I have a bunch of things. I like these ones, for example. I'm going to take one of these. So here it is. I will copy this from here, and then coming here in my HTML, one thing I can do is obviously just paste them over here. But because I want to use material icons, I need to include the CSS library with this. So clicking on this instruction, this shows how you can use like the icons in different settings. What I'm interested in is how you include it in your style sheet. So this is the link that I have. Going back to the code coordinates, I come and import that as well. So import URL. And now I have all of those included in my project. Now I just want to show them. One way, obviously, as I said, is I'm just going to go back to the actual icons, click on this, and then it has selected icon. I can just copy this, right? And then go back here in my code, and then here in panel 1 title, I can just paste this, right? And now we already get some sort of a content here. But what I do want to do instead is use the pseudo elements in CSS. And the way you do that is basically I'm going to add a class if the title here, I'm just going to say content title after. So I'm just going to say content. As you can see, the content would be the name of this, which is keyboard arrow down in this case. So I'm just going to paste it here. And then I would say position absolute. And obviously, since I'm using it as pseudo element, I have to define the font family to be material icons, right? So now I have content here, position, font family, material icons, and let's see, I guess it should show up already. Let's see why it doesn't do it. So content after I have the content, keyboard arrow down, position absolute, right 0 and top 0. It should show up unless I'm doing something wrong, which I clearly am. Font family, again, font family, material icons, or maybe like this, like this. I'm trying pretty much everything. One way to figure out what exactly is the font family that you have to assign is usually the way I do it is, as you can see here, it has some stuff over here. You can see that it says font family material icon. So I didn't do anything by mistake. So again, going back to my, yes, content title after. I have content, keyboard arrow down, position absolute, right 0 family, and give it a width of 40 pixel and height of 40 pixel. Just want to make sure I'm doing it right. So I'm just going to do arrow here. Uh, and of course, the problem is this, right? Container title, because that's exactly what I have. So if I do arrow keyboard down, now this literally should show up. And it did. As you can see, it popped something here. Obviously, this is the wrong thing I use. It is, let's see what's the name of it, arrow, keyboard arrow down. So I'm just going to use keyboard arrow down, keyboard arrow down. And it ends up in, because I positioned it absolute and there is no sort of position on its parent, which is the title, it ended up on the right side of my page. To fix it, we can say position on the title relative, right? Now it ends up over here. I'm just going to say instead of top being 0, I'm just going to say 50%, right? And then using transform, translate y minus 50%, it's going to end up right in the center of my panel. Just going to give it a font size of 20 pixels, maybe 30 pixels to make it a little bit bigger. Yeah, why not? So 24 pixel maybe is nicer. And I'm just going to give it a different color, a little bit less shade of dark, so maybe 666. Yeah, I like it more. So now, whenever I click on it, I want this arrow to switch on the top, right? And the way you do it, obviously, when you click on each of these, you can assign a class. So here, whenever I add the class list show, I can do the same thing for this one. Title itself and then class list, and I will just toggle open, right? So initially it's not, but then when you click on it, it's going to be open. The only thing I need to do, since I assigned it in my JavaScript, if I go and inspect the element on this one, you can see that this is specific one. If I click again on it, if I do title, which is the title, and then class list dot add open, you can see that here, if I inspect it again, this title, take a look at here. When I click on it, it will add the open class to the title. Now it's as easy as going to the CSS and go to my title, and then I just say title dot open, and then after, the only thing I need to do is just change this content from keyboard arrow down to keyboard arrow up, I assume should be the correct one. That is true. As you can see now, whenever I click on these panels, this will basically do it. But on the other hand, it doesn't change the state, right? So for these two, it should have changed the state. The way I do it here, in here I can just say hide panels, for example, which removes the class show. But also what I can do, I can say titles dot for each, and then pass a function for each of my title. I'm going to say title dot remove, titles dot class, title dot class list dot remove open, right? So whenever I click on it, it removes the show. So if you can see here, now if I click on it, you can see that it starts working, right? So whenever I click on these panels, it actually works the way I expected, meaning that this can be closed and this one can be opened, right? Just give it a little bit of a better styling. I would go ahead for the, then I'm just going to give the border of 2 pixels solid, just like EEE, and then give it a border radius of maybe 3 pixels, and then set the overflow to hidden. Maybe change it to a little bit better color. This can be, for example, the color, or maybe AAA, a little bit less. But you can see that the top border that I have for the titles, it actually, there is one over here. Maybe I don't like that one. The way to remove it, I'm just going to say container title, and then first child, and then I set the border top width to be 0, right? So now you can see that it actually looks pretty good. And now this works the way I expected. You can also, maybe to make it a little bit nicer, you can add a box shadow to the container itself. Box shadow, 0 on x-axis, 0 on y-axis, 4 pixel for the radius of the shadow, and then 0, 0, 0, which denotes the black, and then 0.2. And then maybe sort of the same thing, but instead now we're gonna give 4 pixels on the y-axis as well, and then maybe 0.1 for the transparency, right? So now you can see that we have a sort of a very nice accordion. You can see that the margin here is, if you look at it here, is 10 pixel. Maybe one thing to make it nicer, it seems like the arrows are very close to this border. What I can do is, instead of write 0, I can maybe say write 5 pixel. That's much better, or even maybe 10 pixel. Uh, not 190, but 10 pixel. Yes, this is much nicer now. So yes, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Please go ahead and subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and click on the bell notification so that you get notified. The goal this year is to provide you with as much information as I have, so that you can build on top of your knowledge or refresh your knowledge in front end, in back end, in anything in the computer development. So I'm soon gonna start some courses step by step on how for the beginners to start like coding in front end or back end or how the architecture works and all that. I got some very nice comments yesterday with regards to the limited text area character thing, which is these comments are very well welcomed. Please go ahead and comment as much as you can. Give me feedback. I really appreciate it because it's not helpful only for me, but also for all the viewers that we have. So again, if you like this tutorial, please go ahead and like it. I will put the link to this tutorial also down into the description, and I wish you a great day and night. Have a good day and night, and bye.